The horrifying attacks in Paris tonight echoing across the globe, bringing the threats we could be facing here on American soil into sharp focus. We're joined now by ABC's Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, clearly tonight's events having a ripple effect here at home.
Indeed, tonight, U.S. law enforcement officials are in a desperate hunt for clues to help the French figure out who is behind this nightmare. The two countries face common enemies, Islamic radicals targeting the Western way of life. Tonight, France feels only a short distance away from the U.S. homeland. Law enforcement officials here worry that the attack may not be isolated, and they're stepping up security. There's complete urgency in finding out who is behind this. The critical question tonight, who did it? On the short list of possibilities, al-Qaeda and ISIS, in part because of recent history.
The tactics used in this specific attack are very similar to what we've seen in the past in attacks carried out by al-Qaeda or ISIS. It's too early to tell for sure who conducted it now, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was either an al-Qaeda affiliate or ISIS.
Just last January, there was a spree of terror in France. Two brothers forced their way into the office of the French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo in Paris, killing 11 and injuring nearly a dozen more. In this video, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula claimed responsibility for the assault, and authorities say one of the two terrorist brothers had traveled to Yemen to receive training and funding from the al-Qaeda affiliate there. Another gunman took several people hostage at a supermarket near Paris and was killed after police stormed the building. Authorities say they found evidence in the gunman's apartment that he was connected to ISIS. His partner fled France and is believed to have traveled to Syria. Al-Qaeda has been looking for ways to do a large-scale attack for years. They've most recently fixated on blowing up commercial airplanes since 9/11, when they conducted the most devastating attack in U.S. history. In recent months, Al-Qaeda has been working on a so-called undetectable bomb that could get past airport security. But perhaps the most active terror group on the planet right now is ISIS, consuming huge swaths of land in Iraq and Syria, forming the so-called Islamic State. Thousands of foreign fighters flowing into those countries, with a social media campaign unprecedented, recruiting people from around the world, including in the U.S. and Europe. More than 1,500 French citizens affiliated with ISIS, a quarter of the European total. This past July, a French-speaking member of ISIS appeared in this video, threatening that the group will bring slaughter to France.
There have been a relatively large number of individuals from France who have traveled to Syria, joined with the groups in the conflict there, and then have come back home just as extreme or even more extreme than before they left.
This New Yorker magazine article described a region called Department 93, a large area of disaffected African and Arab populations who feel cut off from French society. According to the article, estimates are 60% of French prison inmates are Muslim, prime targets for jihadists.
One of the challenges that the French government and the French people will face in the days ahead will be to ensure that hate crimes aren't committed against people who had nothing to do with this attack.
Our thanks to Pierre for tracking all the moving parts in this very fluid situation. Joining us now, former White House counterterrorism official and ABC News consultant Richard Clark. Richard, there are reports that the intelligence community was not picking up any increased chatter leading up to the attack. What does that tell you?
Intelligence community officials are worried tonight, and they have two theories. The first theory is that the French intelligence people are just too overstretched. There are too many suspects for them to follow in detail and listen to all of their phone calls. The other theory is that ISIS, if this is ISIS, may have figured out ways to avoid Western intelligence detection.
And you're beginning to see signs, a pattern, in fact, of recent attacks outside of Syria, outside of the region.
Well, ISIS has always just done attacks in Iraq or Syria. But within the last week, we've had three major attacks that could be ISIS. First, the Russian airplane down in Egypt. Second, yesterday, the first major attack in Beirut in years, one directed against ISIS's foes, the Hezbollah group backed by Iran. And then this one today.
6 separate attacks unfolding simultaneously. Does that suggest to you perhaps a new threat level?
Well, it's certainly a very complicated attack to pull off, and it suggests that the personnel involved in planning it, and some of the people involved, at least in executing it, must have received training outside of France, most possibly in Syria or Iraq. which once again brings us back to ISIS. What that means for the United States is unclear, because there is not a widespread group that ISIS can reside in here in the United States.
And Brian Ross telling us that the forensic investigation is already well underway. What, if anything, might they learn from the investigation that might help stop the global threat of terrorism down the road?
Well, I'm not sure the investigation will tell us anything about how to stop it, except if we try to focus not on who the people were, but why they were converted. Why were they converted to this fundamentalist view of Islam, this violent view of Islam? The only two ways that we can stop this threat in the long term are, one, by going after them in their headquarters, in their homeland, and destroying their organization, destroying their leadership, but two, going after them ideologically, cutting off the roots, getting to have our Arab friends do the work of convincing other Arabs that this is not true Islam. This is, in fact, what the Muslims called haram. It's not religious. It is, in fact, a sin.
Richard Clark, always grateful for your expertise.